What's good, YouTube? This is Boxingwave, and I hope everyone had an amazing weekend. All right. Zhang stops Joyce in 6 rounds. All right. Joyce suffered an eye injury, and the doctors stopped the fight. All right. He did not get knocked out, but he did get stopped. All right. It's a technical knockout. And this shakes up the whole heavyweight division, because Joyce right now recently has been looking like some kind of monster. And I want to apologize to you guys. And I know most of you ain't going to feel this necessary, but I am going to apologize to you gamblers. I know there's a lot of people that gamble and they watch my videos and they want to hear predictions and stuff like that. If you're a gambler, I apologize to you because if I had did a breakdown of this fight, it would have sounded like I'm putting my money on Zhang, which is what I did. And I would have probably told you that I'm expecting Joyce to win. All right. But I put all of my money on Zhang by knockout this weekend, because I didn't think it was any sense to hedge it in any way because Joyce was too much of a favorite. And I won big. I won big this weekend on this fight. I've been wrong with Joyce fights. I've gone back on my channel and I've looked at all the the 3 previous breakdowns that I've done of Joyce. And Brian Jennings was the first one I ever did. And in that one, yes, I picked Joyce to win that one, right? But I thought he would dominate and stop Brian Jennings due to his pressure. I was wrong there because the fight went to distance, and at that time and even after, Jennings gave Joyce one of his best professional fights. He was even able to hurt Joyce early in that fight, as far as I remember, by hitting him to the body. Okay, so it was kind of competitive compared to every other Joyce fight professionally. Compared to everyone that still believed that Jennings gave him the best fight to date, not only because he survived, but because he was able to hurt Joyce at some point in that fight. All right. I did a breakdown on Daniel Dubois, and I picked Daniel Dubois to win. I thought Daniel Dubois would hurt Joyce because Joyce's defense is poor. We know that he's very durable, but I figured that Dubois was a pretty big and strong, powerful puncher that would clip him and hurt him at some point. I was wrong there. And then recently I picked Joseph Parker to edge out a win against Joyce. That was one that was kind of back and forth with, but at the very end I picked Joseph Parker to beat him. And I'll admit, I was somewhat influenced by his performance against Chisora in the rematch. I felt like Parker might possibly be able to hurt him to a point where Joyce won't pressure him as much. And me personally, I think that was Joyce's best performance professionally. Even a Dubois win was good because just the little things that I saw in Joyce. Up to this point and up until yesterday, for the most part, Joyce has been this guy that was just coming forward like the juggernaut and just, walking through punches and giving, replying with more punching power and just volume and overwhelming whoever he fought. It never looked good. I never was a fan of it. It's pretty much why I always picked against him in all of his fights. But this is the first fight I ever picked against him when it came to betting. All right, I never betted on a Joyce fight before, and I won big. I got it right. And what made me decide on that, because I probably talked about this fight in previous lives where I briefly spoke on it. I really wasn't checking for it, but to be honest, I never really gave Zhang a chance. And what I mean by that is, when I started first watching him professionally, right, it was late. I think I might have seen him on a DAZN card at one point, and I saw, big guy, very, up there in age. I just felt like by the time he got into a real fight, his age was going to show. So I never really followed him like that. I've been following him for the most recent years. I want to say the last 4 years or so. But, I saw the Jerry Forrest fight. And at that time, Jerry Forrest was a step up for him. And I saw that, and we all saw what happened in that fight. Cardio was trash. But I heard a couple of interviews from him recently where he was saying how poorly he was taking care of himself leading up to that fight. So, a lot of fighters always say that when they don't perform good or when they lose a fight, they always have excuses. But, I said maybe the guy's right. The guy's, his cardio is not great. And it will never be great. But his cardio was horrible in that fight. It looked like he was going to have a heart attack. I was actually watching that live here, giving commentary. I don't know what fight it was on the undercard or some fight, but I was like concerned that this guy was going to have a heart attack in the middle of the fight. So, then the Hrgović fight happened. And even though many people, it's a very disputable win by Hrgović, I think he barely edged it. All right? I think he barely edged the fight. But I thought that was the worst we've seen of Hrgović with everything that was leading up to the fight. The death of his father and stuff. It was just a lot going on in his career. I can't remember everything, but it was a lot of things going on. And honestly, he didn't look into the fight. And Zhang looked great in that fight. Excuse me. Even in defeat. So going to this Joyce fight, I did some film study earlier this week. And I started to realize, all right, okay, let's not look at the resume. Let's not look at what we just saw. Let's just look at him as a fighter. We're all going to look at his losses or his, not so good performances against some of the best fighters he fought. You look at Hrgović, you look at Forrest, and when it was time to step up, he didn't look that great. He took an L and he had a draw. But if you look at his size, you look at the fact that he's a southpaw, you look at the fact that he has quicker hands than Joyce, and you look at the fact that mainly he fights out of a high guard. And you compare his style to Joseph Parker or Daniel Dubois, right? And you look at those two fighters, guys that, like Triple D is not a back foot fighter. He can't fight on the back foot for anything. All he has is a 1-2. And for the most part, we saw Joyce get out of the way of that. As poor as his defense is, he wasn't there to get hit by every single right hand that Dubois threw. He was actually controlling distance in that fight. And we saw him move his legs. We seen him get in and out of danger using his feet. It's not like he was just marching forward like the robot that he always looks like. No, we seen him get out of the way of shots. We even seen it more in the Joseph Parker fight. And that made me believe, okay, this guy, we could diss him and have jokes on his ugly style because it's ugly. I've never been a fan of him. But I thought his style was effective. Slow, high value. The jabs, he makes them count. You know what I'm saying? He invests in jabbing his opponent to death until he gets the stoppage. That's what he does, right? Slow hands, but it's been effective. And he's fighting guys like Joseph Parker, who was a mover. You know what I'm saying? Who was a mover that tried to win off his speed, try to control distance with his jab. And it wasn't enough. You got to stand up to that guy. That's part of the only reason. I'm only saying all of this because it's all going to make sense. You have to stand. In order to beat that man, you have to stand up to him. Joseph Parker wasn't able to do it. Daniel Dubois tried, but failed miserably because he only had one. He only had a 1-2. He only had a 1-2. Joyce, way more experienced than him. All right? Dubois, yes, he has a punch of power and all that. He's a strong guy. but he had no experience. He don't have much professional experience, and he didn't have any amateur experience like that. You know what I'm saying? Not like that. So Joyce was able to walk through him, walk through Joseph Parker. But now you got this big man. You got this guy that's bigger than you, right? He's just as tall as you, and he's heavier than you. And guess what? He's not moving around like Joseph Parker or even Daniel Dubois. He's not moving around. He's standing right there in the center of the ring, ready to go. Because he knows that he's a big man. He knows that he has power. And he knows one thing. He's a southpaw that's shooting straight left hands right down the middle, where your head is always dead center. Unlike Parker, unlike Daniel Dubois. You know what I'm saying? So he was able to go blow to blow with you. And being that he's fighting out of a high guard, a lot of those pity-pat jabs, they had no effect on Zhang. Too big, too durable, at least in this fight, too durable, and he was able to handle it. Now, the key thing with this fight, and this is very important, if Zhang didn't cause the amount of damage that he caused in the first round or two, especially the first round, the outcome might have been different. I don't think Joyce respected him like the way he respected Joseph Parker and Daniel Dubois. I think from out the gate, he wanted to pressure Zhang, and Zhang made him pay for it. I mean, the first few 3 or 4 straight left hands that he landed already had an effect on him. Bloodied his nose, swell up his right eye, bruising up the other one. It already had its effect. So all he had to do is keep at it. On top of that, there were certain rounds where Joyce showed too much respect. And there were times where Joyce was putting on too much pressure. And even though Zhang didn't throw, like I think maybe it was after the 3rd or 4th round, you started to see Zhang started to breathe heavy out of his mouth. You started to see him slow down, and he started throwing less punches. But there were points in the fight where he would ambush and throw a combination out of nowhere. He'll go a whole minute and a half without throwing anything, and then out of nowhere, boom, boom, rocked him. At any given time, he didn't have to fight a full 3 minutes of each round. All he did was have more of an effect on all the shots he landed. At the meantime, he's still standing right in front of Joyce. Joyce is throwing punches and punches and punches. He's throwing combinations. He's doing everything he could. Big man is fighting out of a high guard. And he's parrying a lot of these shots. He's doing arm blocks. A lot of shots Joyce couldn't get through. Plus, he's extremely slow as it is. You know what I'm saying? Is he not fighting Dubois or Joseph Parker, whose guard was low? You know what I'm saying? He's fighting a guy that you got to punch through or around his guard. And he wasn't able to do it. Guy's bigger than him. That's what happened. The Juggernaut basically ran into another Juggernaut. Like, you know, I'm watching it again this morning, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, oh, Joyce just can't bully this guy. Now, if he didn't take so much damage, and if they do have a rematch, I can see how he could win. If he takes it easy and draw it out a little longer, you know, take less damage early and put it on Zhang later when he slows down, because Zhang is going to slow down. It's not just the Jerry Forrest fight. It's the Hrgovic fight too. He's going to slow down. He's 39 years old right now. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. And Joyce is not up there. He's up there in age too. You know, but that is exactly what the problem. Zhang, perfect game plan executed, and it needed to work the way that it did. It absolutely needed to work because the key thing is he put enough damage on the guy so early that by the time he started to slow down, it didn't matter. Those 2 or 3 shots that he would land on every round in the later rounds of this fight, they had an effect already because he was already busted up. And honestly, if the ref didn't jump in the first round, that fight might have been stopped early on, or Joyce might have at least went down or got a standing 8 count or something. Because Joyce was hurt in the first round. If the ref didn't interfere, and I'm still not really sure why he did, I think he went to try to break them up or something, but if the ref didn't interfere in that, Joyce seemed to be in trouble as early as the first round. I think his power, Zhang's power, caught him by surprise. And there was times where they were showing the corner, and the corner was telling him, like, you got to pick it up. And he started to pick it up. But as he picked it up, he took more hits. And the guy, even though Zhang was slowing down, he's not catching the full effect of Joyce's shots. And that's why he lost. Now, I think that Joyce may have a better chance in the rematch. He might have a better chance, but strategically, even if he fought for a more strategic fight, like how he did against Parker or Daniel Dubois, let's say he fought a more strategic fight. How are you going to win rounds if you don't have your volume? You're a volume puncher. You're a fighter that needs to swarm their opponents. Who says Zhang is going to come after you? You know, Zhang beat him up because Joyce was right there to get hit. So if you play it smart and start using your legs like we've seen him do in the past, how are you going to pick up rounds? Or is it going to be about rounds? It's a gamble, but you'll be putting everything on the second half of the fight when the guy slows down. But you still might be taking damage along the way. Because now the guy is confident. He knows exactly what to do. He was confident in this whole fight. He's going to be even more confident if they have a rematch. Now, this shakes things up in the heavyweight division, and I'm going to give you my opinion, and it won't be long. It's quite simple. Zhang just beat a guy that would have gave problems to the other top heavyweights. I'm talking about White, Wilder, Joshua, Usyk, Fury, Ruiz. Not saying he would have beaten all those guys. What I'm saying is he is in the mix of those guys. All right? He's in the mix. I think he can win on a certain night. I think he can beat maybe 2 of those guys at least. Maybe. Right? Zhang doesn't have a better shot at beating those guys. This is what I mean about boxing and when it comes to styles. I know a lot of people like to look at, this guy lost to this guy, or this guy didn't do it. No. It's about styles. Zhang was a nightmare for Joyce. It doesn't matter what the odds say. All right? Yes, the odds have a lot of influence, but he was not stylistically a nightmare for him. A nightmare. And I don't even think Zhang does better against any of those guys I just named. I don't think he beats Andy Ruiz. I don't think he beats Anthony Joshua. I don't think he beats Deontay Wilder or Fury or Usyk. He beat Joyce because he had the absolute tools to beat Joyce. Everybody else, they know exactly what they're going to do against him. We know exactly what they're going to do against him. He has power. He's dangerous. Right? But he had power And he was able to use it on someone whose head was right there. He's a human punching bag that normally doesn't get hurt by the fighters he's faced. So Zhang, it doesn't mean that Joyce is done. It's a huge setback at the time that he's in because he's trying to get in the mix. He's up there in age too, so he's trying to get a big fight. It's a huge setback, but it doesn't necessarily mean that Joyce was overrated all this time. He's like, no, 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 no. He just fought a big man, a guy that's bigger than him, that he just couldn't walk through. And he took too many hits. A big southpaw fighter. That's not, you can't push back. You can't move him back. You move Danny Dubois back. You move Joseph Parker back. You can't do that to Zhang. Couldn't move him back. He barely fought on the back foot at all in this fight. I'm talking about Zhang. But Zhang was able to walk Joe Joyce down at times. I don't think Zhang beats any of those top 5 guys. All right, but he's currently the WBO interim world title holder. It's kind of sucks because you got Hrgovic and Dubois, who's ahead of Zhang and Joyce to get a title shot. I feel like those two have been fighting the better fighters. Especially Joyce. I mean, he has an excellent resume. He has an excellent resume. Even with this loss. This is why, and people are killing him. I see people on social media. They're killing this guy. I don't like Joyce because I don't like the way he fights. It's just not an eye-pleasing guy to watch. You know? I did like the Joseph Parker fight, though. I thought that was a really good fight. I'm just not a fan of his style. That's just me. He's a nice guy. Like, he seems like a great guy. You know what I'm saying? But I respect him because what he does is effective. It's just not something that I like to watch. I don't like him fighting, right? But it's effective. And I do believe that he gives people, like I was talking about this with AJ a couple weeks back after the Franklin fight. And I said, you know, not for nothing, even though AJ picked up the win and he did what he had to do, he took care of business, all right? It's only a couple rounds that I would give Franklin in that fight. I said to you guys, on a different day or any given day, I can see AJ losing to someone that he's not supposed to lose to. I mean, he's done it once, but I didn't think Andy Ruiz was as big of an upset that people made it out to be. You know, it was a huge upset. I'm not trying to take away. It was. But I think Andy Ruiz was better than advertised leading up to that fight. He's not just this random chubby fat guy. With that being said, I think AJ should beat Joe Joyce. Right? But it depends on how you fight him. If you are going to stand up to him and go for the knockout, then you will beat him. But if you don't have that killer instinct that it doesn't seem like you really have at this point, there's a chance you might lose the fight. Zhang had it, and that's the reason why he won. You can't cower away from this guy. He's just a man. And anybody in the heavyweight division can get hurt. Anybody can get hurt at some point. Losses like that yesterday is the reason why people duck so much. That's the first thing I was thinking after I won my money. I was up jumping and screaming yesterday because I won my money. I was happy. You know, I don't gamble too much, but I do, you know, place my bets here and there. And I thought, like, this is exactly why people cherry pick. You know? This is exactly like that. Stuff like that. When you're so close to a title fight and you take a fight who many predicted this guy to be or having a great chance on the upset. You know? It is what it is, man. I don't really know what else to say. Zhang is still gonna have to wait in line though. You know, Usyk is most likely to be fighting Daniel Dubois next. But there's all these rumors about a 4-man tourney, you know, all this, or a 5 or whatever, man. Like this Tyson Fury is gonna fight Andy Ruiz, and then at the end of the year, all of these guys are gonna fight each other, and the winners of the 5 fights or so are gonna fight each other at the end for the titles. There's some rumor that's going around. I don't know how true that is. I don't believe it. You know, I don't think boxing necessarily works that way. I mean, we couldn't even get Fury and Usyk, and no one was in the way for that. You know, I mean, you got two guys that are the only two champions in the division. You know, just like when Joshua and Wilder were the only two champions in the division. Just couldn't get it. You know? But good win for Zhang. Like again, you know, I don't know if they have a rematch. You know, I don't know. I don't know where I would go if they would have it. I guess we'll talk about that if that ever happens. But good win. You know, you gotta have wins like this every once in a blue. This is why the 154 division is one of my favorite divisions since I've had this channel in the past 10 years. Because look what happened last week with Brian Mendoza and Sebastian Fundora. You know, no one in that division just goes through without being undefeated. No one does. All of them is going to take an L. And you know why? It's because they've all been fighting each other. And this is why I have so much criticism for the fighters in the heavyweight division. Because all of you would have a loss if you went, in my opinion, I believe that all of them would have had a loss if they fought the best fighters at the time when it was supposed to happen. I'm including Anthony Joshua. I know he lost to Andy Ruiz, right? But even if he didn't lose to him, he would have had his day. The day might have been the Klitschko loss. It might have been that day. It might have been that day. You know, Fury doing his cherry picking shit in between his fights. You know, he might have had his day. You know, he almost had his day when he fought Otto Wallin. That was a stoppable cuttage. You know what I'm saying? That was a cuttage. That was a stoppable cut. You know, Wilder had his losses, but same with him. How many bums did he rack up over the years? All of them would have their losses, in my opinion. Usyk just got there. Usyk is the only one that truly ran through his division. Can't say the same as a heavyweight, but he's doing what he can while he's there. He's only been there for a short time. You know what I'm saying? So, and this is why people duck. All right? But anyway, I got to get on out of here, man. Tank Davis, Ryan Garcia week. I thought it was last week. My bad. I will give you a breakdown. I will give you a breakdown as soon as I can. It won't be that hard of a breakdown to do, to be honest. I already know where I'm going with it. It's not really that deep. But I will do a little bit of film study before I make my final decision. All right? But I'm pretty much leaning towards Tank. All right, so be on the lookout for that. Please, again, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, smash that like button. All right, hit me on the social media, the Twitters, and all that. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Have a good day. Peace.